Hello, listeners. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Bryan Myers, the CEO of solidcore, to talk about leading with humanity, dreaming big, and building a values driven vision. Bryan shares how he keeps leadership approachable, how he empowers employees to think like owners, and how bold ideas become reality without losing authenticity or heart. So, whether you're an executive, an entrepreneur, or an aspiring leader, get ready to learn how to lead with purpose, stay grounded in your values, and dream a little bigger along the way. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. What does it truly mean to be a leader? Welcome to The Executive, a podcast that highlights the career journeys, struggles, successes, and day-to-day experiences of leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Benjamin Ritter, bringing over 10 years of experience as a leadership and career coach, L&D consultant, and healthcare executive. My mission is to guide leaders towards creating a career they can love. Thank you for listening. Now let's hear from the executive. So Bryan, I was doing a little bit of research and kind of came across a little bit of your morning routine. I don't know if that's changed at all. I don't know if broccoli or dog walking is still a part of it, but would love to hear kind of how you get started, how a leader such as yourself gets started through the day.
It it's funny. I am a routine person, so those things are definitely still a part of my routine. And I very rarely switch up my routine. So I wake up in the morning, usually sometime between 5:30 and 6. So I'm a bit of an early riser, but not a crazy early riser. My day usually starts with a walk for about 15-20 minutes with my dog, Dexter. He's an excuse to get me moving, regardless of whether it's hot, cold, raining, or snowing. We do a walk around the neighborhood. It's an opportunity for me to just like settle into my day. I usually try to catch up on whatever I might have missed overnight, whether that be work or personal, or the news. And then I get into the chaos of the rest of my day, which includes getting a 3-year-old toddler son ready, getting myself ready, and breakfast is a core component of that. And as you alluded to, I eat a very veggie forward breakfast. And so I'm usually eating egg whites in some form. So either hard boiled egg whites or scrambled egg whites, plus a veggie, which is usually steamed broccoli, plus a couple of pieces of toast and a piece of fruit. That's how I get started.
Are there any routines that you have throughout the day that help you stay focused and on track as a leader?
Um, yeah, I have a couple. First is whenever I arrive at the office, the first thing that I do is I check our real-time dashboards. And that's a way for me to just ground myself in how the business is performing. And they refresh every morning so you can see exactly how the business performed the day prior. You can cut that in a number of different ways across key KPIs that we think about a lot here at solidcore. Um, and again, it like just like grounds me in how's the business performing, as that will influence how we need to pivot or double down on whatever we're doing as I move through meetings throughout the day. So that's the first thing that I do. The second thing that I do is I always try to grab my breakfast that I just referenced in the kitchen, to the extent that my schedule allows. Um, that allows me to connect with the rest of the team, many of whom I may not come across in my day-to-day meetings, but are really, really important to everything that we do here at solidcore. And so I will sit in the kitchen usually for 30 to 45 minutes, and it's just an opportunity as people are coming in and they're grabbing their coffee or they're heating up their oatmeal or whatever they're doing to start their day. It's an opportunity for me to just connect with folks. And then the last routine, I've never actually admitted this to anyone, Ben, so I don't know what it is about you in this podcast that's making me admit this. But the other routine that I have is I spend a lot of my day in meetings and talking. And another thing that's really important to me is that when I'm in my office, if I'm not on a meeting, I leave my door open and I always tell people, come in, you're welcome to talk to me, ask me a question, submit a complaint, whatever. I'm here to serve. And so when I need quiet space, I will often just go to the bathroom. And so that is another part of my routine where I will just go to the bathroom and I will sit for a couple of minutes and I'm like, this is a space where no one's going to interrupt me. And I can sit here and be selfish with my time and selfish with my energy, recharge, and then walk back out of the bathroom ready to take on the rest of the day. I've never admitted that to a single other person. So congrats. You pulled it out of me.
Um, it's really smart. It's kind of like those shower thoughts. It's when you get a
Yes,
moment where you have almost no inputs and no outputs in your brain, like the seeds from the day and the thoughts, even things you weren't aware of, can just come to fruition and sprout. It's like almost a reset.
totally.
Yeah. Especially if you have such an open door policy where you're giving people on the opportunity to connect, to see you, to build that credibility and reliability. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Of
Audience
course.
members, you got a little secret, little tidbit. Uh, in my own career, like I've had internal positions working at companies and working with leaders that are trying to grow in their careers. Coming across the CEO can be kind of intimidating. And so when you brought up the sitting and getting breakfast and building those connections, creating that visibility with your team, how do you, I guess, create conversation with and like what are the topics? And if people are listening to this that want to connect with the CEO, what can they say? What should they say?
It's really interesting because I have felt this level of intimidation with senior leaders as I progressed in my career. So I know what it feels like on the other side. And I basically do what I would have wanted someone to do for me. And whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But it is what I do, which is I try to engage in conversations that are actually not about work. Because I think at the end of the day, when people see a senior leader, they see their CEO, um, uh, they sort of put them in this box of like this is the person who is responsible for making a bunch of decisions about this company or who's responsible for driving this particular initiative, who thinks about work constantly, and they're a robot that like is only thinking about like revenue in and profits out, right? And of course, thinking about revenue in and profits out is a big part of who I am and a big part of my job. But I also really hope that people see me as someone who is a human, just as imperfect as the next human out there who wants to live a holistic and well balanced life. And so when I'm sitting in the kitchen, I was just spending time with a team member this morning over breakfast talking about I've done a bunch of travel both for work and for pleasure over the last few months, and just talking about, what I've seen and what have been like my favorite parts of vacation and what was my takeaway from this trip that I went on. And again, it was just an opportunity to connect on something that wasn't really work related, but was really just something that we share as humans, which is the desire to see new places and experience new things and learn about those places when you're there. And so, long story short, is the advice that I would give to someone who's feeling that level of intimidation is to lean into the personal and try to connect with that leader on something that you all may share in common outside of the workplace.
Hmm. And the CEO is also a human, and
Yeah.
they do human things.
Yeah, and we enjoy talking about things that aren't work. I think there's sometimes this pressure, and again, I felt it too, where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm only going to see this person or interact with them on these rare occasions, and so I got to like impress them by talking about like this thing that I'm working on or this success that my team just had. And that's all great. And, like I mentioned, going and squirreling away in the bathroom, like there are moments where I'm like, I don't actually want to talk about work right this second. And I would love to talk about who you are as an individual and what drives you and what makes you tick and what excites you and how you spend your time outside of the four walls of a solid core office. So don't forget that.
Yeah, and the best way to connect, have maybe the background of your phone is your pet. If you have
Yes.
a pet, and then all of a sudden
Yes.
now you're sharing photos, or even just something as simple as, "Oh, what are you eating for breakfast?" I could talk about how now I like broccoli. I never liked broccoli before. Something really simple and easy can create that human connection to
Totally.
again show that you're human. Uh, Great. I mean, what a great lesson for anyone that's listening, because it can feel there's so much pressure to try to create visibility for yourself and to grow within to grow within a company within your career, and you think that when you have a connection with an executive that's what it's there for, when really the relationship first matters so much more.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing a bit about your day. It really does, I think, help humanize you too to our audience members because you've had a really impressive career path, and we have a separate bio, but I'd love to, hear a little bit about kind of when you were thinking about what your career was going to be, like way back when. Was CEO in on the vision board? Like when did you really realize that you wanted to be this level of leader?
CEO was never on the vision board. However, I did always have this natural draw toward a career in business. And when I was a kid, I tried to start these businesses, again, businesses in quotes, selling candy, selling fruit, trying to start a babysitting agency. I tried to do these things that felt sort of business like. And so while I never in my mind thought I'm going to be a CEO, I did in my mind think I want to be a part of building a business. And so when I went to school, I studied business. I ultimately left and graduated and joined consulting because I felt like it was a great place for me to learn a lot about businesses and how businesses work. And the more that I learned, the more I think driven that I became to not necessarily sort of grow vertically, but the more driven I became to figure out ways to make meaningful impact. And I think through that, what starts to naturally happen is as you create impact and meaningful impact, people give you more responsibility. And so it was really this sort of calling toward business and this desire for impact that ultimately sort of came together that then led me to this path of becoming CEO. And it wasn't really until I started here at solidcore 7.5 years ago as COO, Chief Operating Officer. And it wasn't until at that moment when we were talking about sort of the future of the business, and our founder, who was serving as CEO at the time, mentioned that she sort of had this vision of selling the business and no longer being involved, that I thought to myself ever for the first time that, whoa, I wonder if, you know, that then maybe creates a path for me to potentially be CEO of this business one day. But truly, it was not until that moment in time that I ever really thought, Bryan Myers could actually be a CEO.
I love how you started the conversation also just with a little bit of an entrepreneurial tact and spirit. And kind of, yeah, you were to comment on that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I grew up in a household of working class parents. Neither of my parents went to college. My dad was a Marine, and we moved around the country living on military bases and lived abroad as well on a military base surrounded by other Marines. And so I never saw business people. I never saw like entrepreneurs really. Everyone again lived sort of this military lifestyle. And so it was really interesting that for whatever reason I was sort of naturally drawn to try to start these businesses as a kid, this sort of entrepreneurial mindset. And then I kind of like left that in the dust as I went into college and thought about going into consulting. But while I was in consulting, Ben, it's really fascinating because that entrepreneurial spirit came sort of whispering back in my ear because I found myself loving what I did and yet still feeling like something was missing. And the something
Mm.
that was missing was this desire to help build something, sort of that sort of entrepreneurial spirit. And that is ultimately why I left consulting and I joined the leadership team at Sweetgreen because I wanted to be a part of helping to build something. And that's ultimately what you get to do when you join these smaller businesses that are growing and scaling.
Yeah, and your employee base, at least some of them, I imagine have that entrepreneurial spirit or have components of entrepreneurs that help them kind of build their own brands, but build your brand. I think the word was like culture carriers that
Yep.
I've heard used. Uh, yeah, can you speak a little bit about kind of like how that um, how if that idea even resonates, and kind of the culture of your employees and what has led to your success up to today, building on that more?
Yeah. So I think there's two elements to this that I would speak about. At solidcore. So for those of you who are not familiar with solidcore, we operate a chain of over 150 studios. We are a reformer-based strength training workout. It's a 50-minute full body workout. So we're going to work your upper body, your center core, your obliques, your lower body, and it's all done in a immersive environment with dimmed lights and loud music and a coach who's actually giving you the instruction to get through the workout. And so there are two elements of our team that I think really symbolize the entrepreneurial spirit that a lot of our folks embody. So the first is in the field, right? Our coaches, who we have several thousand of them today across our 150 plus studios, who are delivering the classes that we have on our schedule. And for each of them, we've designed a compensation scheme that incentivizes their performance, right? So the more full their classes, the more they get paid. And the benefit of that, of course, is that when the business wins, the individual wins, and vice versa, and creates sort of that shared success culture. But the other benefit of that is that it attracts a certain type of mindset, right? It attracts the person who is actually driven to create a mini community within the solidcore community of folks who are super excited to take their class. And so what you see are people who are texting or Instagram DMing with their clients to say, hey, Ben, I haven't seen you in a while. Would love to have you back in my class. Because one, it benefits them to have that person in their class, but two, they've built a genuine connection with you, Ben, as the client, and actually want to see you get stronger. They're posting their schedules on Instagram. They're creating content on TikTok about ways that you can level up your solidcore workout. They're hosting theme classes, all of these things that are really designed to drive more engagement with their small sort of community that they've created. And so you see a lot of entrepreneurialism there. And then on the sort of HQ side, right? So the folks who are here at our headquarters right outside of Washington, D.C., and a bunch of different functions, whether it's people in HR, operations, or finance, et cetera, we do something that we call our $1 million mindset. And I won't go into the long history of why we call it that, but essentially it's an award that we give out quarterly that is really meant to encourage our team members to come to the table with ideas that they think will be needle moving in terms of the trajectory of the financial performance of the business or the relationship that we're able to build with our clients. And so essentially what it's designed to do is sort of encourage our team to think like owners, to think like entrepreneurs, to think that when you see something that can be improved, that it's actually incumbent upon all of us as a team here to voice how and why we think this process or this thing should be improved and what it can do for the business. And so really across our entire employee base, it's deeply ingrained in our culture to think in a more entrepreneurial way than I think you would naturally expect in a business of our size and scale.
Wow. Any insight into some of the $1 million mindset ideas that
Oh my gosh, some of our best, and we say this all the time, I am not the person with the best idea just because I have the title of CEO. Some of our best, most transformative ideas have come from individuals that are team members here. Maybe they've been here for a day, maybe they've been here for a month, maybe they've been here for a year. A few of the most transformative, one was actually the spacing between our machines. And for a long time, there was 2 feet of space between machines at solidcore. And someone, again, a team member, relatively junior, said, why do we have to have 2 feet of space between the machines at solidcore? When I go to other workout classes, I go to SoulCycle and the bikes are literally 8 inches apart. I'm squeezing between them. I'm like touching my neighbor. Like, not that we want to recreate that experience, but like, what if we push them closer together? And when we did that, and we've done that over time, you can actually fit 1, 2, sometimes up to 3 more reformers in a studio. And that has been transformative for the company's financial performance. But again, because our team members are compensated based on how many people are in their class, it's actually also benefited every team member who shows up here at solidcore. So one of the most transformative ideas that we've had, again, financially. And then we've had other ideas like, again, building that connection between client and coach to make our sort of our community feel more connected. And one of the ideas was, um, could we generate essentially a pre-class report that gave more information about our client's history with us that would allow me as a coach to better serve them? So I could understand, how many classes this person has taken. When was their last class? Have I seen them in my class before? Again, allowing our coaches to create more of that connection that makes solidcore feel like a third space for our clients. And so that's something that we've implemented and we've continued to refine over time as a tool that our coaches use.
Wow. Really highlights the channel of communication. It's like, oh, we're listening, and not only are we listening, we're implementing. Like,
Yeah.
and that creates again a sense of trust, engagement, and ownership in your employees in regards to the company as well as kind of their own bottom line. Uh, how do you listen to your employees? Maybe it is maybe it's like how do you hear the $1 million ideas, but maybe there's some other areas that you found really helpful for kind of creating those communication channels.
I think the first thing that I would say is make yourself accessible as a leader. And how you as a leader feel comfortable doing this is going to vary person to person. Um, but I will tell you the ways that I have done it. One is I'm reasonably active on social media, and you find a lot of our team members and clients fairly active on social media. So my Instagram is public, my TikTok is public, and it is very common for our team members to engage with me on both of those platforms, whether it's me commenting on a post that they're sort of uploading about solidcore, or them sliding into my DMs on a post that I upload about solidcore, etc. So I try to make myself accessible in that way. The other is that we as a company operate a physical in-person experience, and I don't shy away from being in the physical in-person experience. And so I take class weekly, multiple times a week, usually. I travel to markets all over the country where we have solid core, and I spend time with our teams. And all of that is done intentionally so that I can really deeply understand how our clients are experiencing our spaces and how our team members are experiencing our spaces and our culture here at Solid Core. And again, creating those open lines of communication where they know that I'm accessible. So those are the sort of less formal ways that I create accessibility. Then there are the formal ways, right? So our $1 million Mindset Award, just to use that as an example, that is a quarterly submission, an email that goes out to the full company. People can submit those ideas directly, and those get analyzed and assessed by me and the rest of our senior leadership team. Then there are quarterly town halls that we do. And those are opportunities where myself and the rest of our senior leadership team show up on Zoom calls and we solicit questions. That can be literally anything under the sun. It can be, hey, I am really frustrated by XYZ thing that's happening. Can you explain why this is happening? Or it can be, what's the first country that we're going to go to when we expand internationally, and anything in between. And we answer those questions openly and transparently for an hour on those calls. So we try to create ways, both formal and informal, across a variety of different touch points, written, in person, video, etc., that allows our team to have access to me, but importantly, the rest of the senior leadership team as well.
Super unique to notice like how important your public social profiles also are probably to your team and to the company, other than just kind of those formal channels. I've just like I'm curious if when you go work out at one of the classes, are you registering under your name, or you like prepping them to be like, it's okay, I'm gonna be there. Like how do you? Uh,
I do show up under my name, and I try not to make it feel like undercover boss, because at the end of the day, that's not what I'm there for. I am not there to evaluate our team. We have an amazing training team whose responsibility is to ensure that our standards from a coaching standpoint are upheld by our coaches. And I always say to people, my job, like they are the subject matter experts on that. I'm the subject matter expert on what I do every day, and it is not give feedback to coaches in studio. And so what I say should not trump what they hear from their manager, and certainly shouldn't trump what they hear from their training team. And so I go into every class situation letting the coach know I am here for a workout. Like I'm just here. I try to work out 4 to 5 times a week. I try to make solidcore two of those, 4 to 5 times, and like I'm just here to work out and hang out and have a good time. I am not here to be evaluative, but it does certainly, especially if I haven't taken the person's class before, it can certainly rattle some people to see my name show up on their roster.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to what do I say to the CEO when he's having breakfast next to me? What do I say to the CEO when he's taking my workout class? It's
Yeah.
pretty it's so interesting. I'm hearing these like consistencies of values through the stories that you're telling. Uh, in your transition from like the COO to CEO, or even just throughout your career as an executive, what values or leadership beliefs do you get to maybe like live into even more now that you're at the, at the helm, at the wheel, that maybe
Mhm.
you were kind of tempering in previous positions or roles?
I think the biggest one on this is um, the ability to dream big and not worry about how it's going to happen, not be constrained by how it's going to happen. And I think when you sit in the COO role, as an example, or when you sit in a functional leadership role, your job is to take vision and figure out how to make it reality. And oftentimes, as you go through that, you end up having to say no to a lot of things because you're like, that is not going to work. We can't do that because of this, or I haven't thought about, or you haven't thought about this thing that's going to like make this really, really hard. And I think the thing that I've leaned in the most to as CEO is saying the thing out loud that in my mind, I actually have no idea if it's even possible. I have no idea if our team is capable. I have no idea if we have the money, the resources, because I have a ton of smart people who work at this company whose job it is to take the thing and go, yeah, like that's a crazy idea. And we can't do that. But I understand the essence of what you're trying to do, and this is actually what we can do. And I think the ability to ideate freely without the constraints of reality has actually been one of the most fun parts of the job and of the transition into the CEO role.
That visionary mindset and approach and skill. How do you then ensure that you're not like, we should totally do a class on an island in the middle of, I don't know, the Pacific, and someone's not like, okay, he said that we have to go do that. Like, how have you created the space for people to say, actually, no, but, or no, and, like, to get curious and to take that vision and turn it into a reality that you actually can work on, which requires some pushback.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Ben, and one that candidly I don't think I've been asked before. So I, I think a part of it is helping people understand what I view my role as, right? Like I will openly say to people, I'm saying this without any prospect understanding of whether or not this is actually possible. But here is the vision that I would love to make happen, and here is the why. So I think there's probably two things in that. One is caveating what I'm saying with like, hey, here is the vision unconstrained. So the sort of takeaway from that is like your job is to help put the constraints around it. But I think the other that I said in there is helping people understand the why, such that it then says to them, okay, it's actually not the idea per se that Bryan is wedded to, but it's the thing that he's trying to do with the idea. It's the feeling he's trying to invoke, or the experience that he's trying to create, or the connection that he's trying to forge with our employee base or with our client community or with our vendors or whoever it happens to be. And let me think about ways within the constraints that I know are realities of the business, of the team, of our financial position. I can come back to him and say, well, I can't do this idea. I did hear your why, and this is how I can solve your why. And I think both of those things create space. Again, the caveating and then also the why create space for the team to be able to come back in a way that feels productive as opposed to feels like, oh my gosh, I have to go shoot down Bryan's idea. And instead, they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
I actually get to be a thought partner with Bryan for how he gets after this thing that he's trying to get after.
Well, let's take a moment. What visions have been made reality that you're really excited about right now?
There's one that we are launching here in September of 2025 that I'm incredibly excited about. And one of the things that has been a priority for me since becoming CEO is um, figuring out ways to amplify the brand while staying authentic to who we are. And I think that's actually a really delicate tension in business and leadership, because there are ways that you can go and sort of buy your way into amplifying the brand. But then the people who are closest to the brand start to say things like, oh, you've sold out, or I miss the way that this used to be, or this doesn't feel like who the brand is. And I think one of the things that I'm super, super excited about is a campaign that we are launching here in September of 2025 that we're calling Get Obsessed. And I'm excited about it for a few reasons. One is the opportunity to work with A-list talent, and so we are enlisting the support of a comedian celebrity named Ego Wodum, who many may know from being a prominent cast member on Saturday Night Live. And she's also done a bunch of other stuff and more stuff to come. She's really sort of on the rise as a comedic star. And I'm super, super excited about her because of the reach that she has, but I'm also really excited about it because of the authenticity that it represents. And it represents authenticity in two ways. One is Ego is a solid core client, and she has taken 300 plus solid core classes. And so the connection between the celebrity who we're engaging and the brand is one that's real. It's not manufactured. It's not done just for a paycheck. And that was really, really important for us as a company. And then the essence of the campaign, this idea of get obsessed, was actually deeply rooted in what our consumers say about the brand, right? Like when you look at what people tweet or Zeet or whatever it's called now that it's X instead of Twitter, people talk about being obsessed with the brand. When you look at trending videos on TikTok, people will be like, oh my gosh, I just took my first solid core class. It was so challenging, but I'm obsessed with the feeling that it gave me. And so we're sort of leading really into these authentic messages that we hear from our clients with an authentic brand ambassador in a way that we believe will help amplify the brand in an increasingly competitive landscape. And so that's a vision that I'm really, really thrilled is coming to life this month.
Woo! I want to like do those confetti poppers and stuff and just get excited. Uh, really, really, really neat. And again, your values just sound so clear and strong in how you describe, this like vision made reality with authenticity, humanity, and obsession. Um, how do you internally celebrate an accomplishment such as this?
Yeah, this is actually one of my you didn't ask me this question, but this is one of the things that I'm worst at as a leader. I set very aspirational goals for myself and for our business. And when we achieve something, we like are already thinking about the next aspirational goal. And celebration um, is a an area that I am working on as a leader. But the things that I have been trying to do as I work on that as a leader is, one, taking moments that, there are going to be big moments like this, I think, that are obvious to celebrate, where it's like, wow, we pulled off this incredible campaign. We landed this amazing celebrity ambassador for us, feels really on brand. Like, this is a moment to celebrate. And I think those moments are obvious. But I think the thing that I really tried to lean into is, how do you celebrate the less obvious moments, right? Like, how do you celebrate the person who leads payroll here, who makes sure that we get paid every 2 weeks, that never hears from people when things go right and you get your direct deposit, but only hears from people when things go wrong? Like, how do you take time out of your day to stop that person in the hallway and say, thank you for making sure we all got paid today? How do you take a moment when there's, our customer experience team who makes sure our clients have an amazing interaction with us and resolves any pain points that come up when they might be feeling overwhelmed? How do you send them a note to say, oh my gosh, you guys crushed it this week. Our response time is, down to less than 4 hours, and our resolution time is less than a day. You guys are crushing it. Taking those moments. And so I've tried to do more of that. Again, grabbing people in the hallway, sending notes. But we also then try to find uh, moments to zoom out that are not related to any given thing or any given accomplishment, but just as a celebration of the the business that we're building and the movement that we are creating. And one of those moments is coming up actually in October, where we're bringing all of our full-time staff members together, 350 people, flying them all into a resort, and we're spending 3 days just celebrating what we are creating. And it's not because of accomplishing any one thing, but it's millions of small things that each person contributes to day in and day out that have helped create this movement of solidcore that we're going to come back together and celebrate by pouring into these individuals who have created this company, to say thank you for all that you do and all that you've helped us build.
Everything that you've shared has this like official, formal recognition process, even if it is something you're working on, but at the same time, kind of this unexpected gratitude and this general human approach to celebrating and just highlighting the importance of the people around you. So thank you for sharing those different examples. And I'm a little jealous. It sounds like a ton of fun that you're bringing everybody together.
It's gonna be awesome. And we really think about it, when people think about work retreats, they think about going and learning skills to make themselves better at their job, like how to be a better cog in the wheel. And one of the things that's really important for us culturally is that when people walk away from this retreat, that they walk away feeling like better humans, not like better employees. And better humans will make better employees, but we want them to feel like they're better humans as a result of spending these 3 days um, together. And that regardless of whether they stay at solidcore for another day, another year, or another 10 years, that whenever they leave this place, that they leave a better version of themselves, which goes back to our tagline of, we are here to help you create the strongest version of yourself.
Yeah, just like people that go to Solid Core and the employees that work at Solid Core, it sounds like just overall you are, improving the world through improving each other. And thank you for doing what you do. If our listeners want to find out more about you, maybe check out your TikTok videos or to learn more about Solid Core, where can they go?
You can find me on both Instagram and TikTok. My Instagram handle is be my so fly. That's B as in boy, MY, like the first two letters of my last name, so fly. So follow along on both Instagram and TikTok. I'd love to say hi.
And all those links will be in the show notes. Bryan, thank you so much for your time today and just your energy. I don't know if anyone comments on your presence, but it is like I feel like I just went through a workout class and I'm all pumped up. I got my endorphins going, and I'm sure our listeners do too.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Ben. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Executive Podcast, where we explore what it truly means to be a leader. If you've taken one thing away, make sure to subscribe, share, and most importantly, leave a review. Thanks again, everyone, and see you next time.